Today we're going to be talking about rate change. Okay, so for example, Trevor, I love you so much, I'm going to give you $100. Sounds good? That's for today. But then tomorrow, I am going to give you $125. Okay? Was this a positive rate change or a negative rate change? Positive. Got to be more money than less money, right? So the question is, how much more money? And usually we're not talking about just shelling out money and looking at that. But if you look at like the stock market and say, well, how much did my stocks, my mutual funds go up or down? How much money like that did I lose or gain? We talk about it in terms of percentage. To go from here to here, is that 100%? Or is it more than 100%? It's more, right? 100% would just be 100. So this is a rate change that takes me beyond 100%. Okay? How much money did I go up? Yeah, $25, which is how much percentage from my original?
125%.
Okay, altogether this full amount is 125% of that. So the increase that I had, which was just that, was a 25% increase. Okay, so to go from $100 to $125, our rate change was 25%. Does that make sense? Okay, the total amount that I now have is 125%, but our rate change itself was just 25%. So that's the type of problems that we're going to be looking at today. Okay, so here's how this works. We've got somebody's salary. Okay, so in January of 2006, their salary was $600 per week. A year later, they got a raise. Okay, so now we're going to $630 a week. Okay, so from $600 to $630. Here's how you can always set this up. You're basically going to create a fraction, and then that fractional piece is going to turn into a decimal. That's kind of what we did back here, right? We said we had 25, which was the amount of increase. You could get that by saying, what's this minus this? And then we took that over the starting amount in this case, which was 100. We're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to take a look at the difference, and then we're going to divide that by the original amount. Okay, so when I do that, what's the difference between 600 and 630?
$30.
30. I'll do it like this. The difference is $30. And by the way, if it was a lesser amount, we would call it negative 30. Okay, we would do it the same way. And the original amount was 600. Okay, so now let's talk about that in terms of, I don't like fractions of 30 over 600. And even if I get rid of some zeros here and say, well, that's 3 over 60, and even if I divide by 3 and I call it 1 over 20, we don't like talking about the change in rate in terms of a fraction. What is that in terms of a percentage? What's 1 divided by 20?
5%.
5%. Which, if you didn't know that, just plug that into your calculator. 1 divided by 20 is 0.005, or 5%. Does that make sense? So he had a 5% increase in his salary from one year to the next. It's not too bad of a raise. Same kind of thing here. We're talking about somebody writing a story, and they write this first draft that's really long, and whoever their editor is, maybe it's in class, it's a teacher that says you got too many words. Cut it down, make it more concise. So they went from 1,032 words, and they cut back quite a bit. Their final draft was only 774. So what percent or what rate of change did they go from their first draft to their final draft? Well, we use this same fractional piece. What's the difference between those two? What's 1,032 minus 774? What is that? $257? I get that right? Or no, I'm sorry, 258. Yeah. Okay. So the change was 258, and what was the original?
1,030.
Yeah, it was this one. Okay. So now when you take that And I wouldn't even try to simplify in terms of fractional pieces. Just plug this into your calculator. 258 divided by 1032. What do you get as a percentage? You actually get a decimal, right? But what does that decimal turn into as a percentage?
0.25.
Okay, so what is 0.25 in terms of a percent?
25%.
Okay, so we have a 25% change. Positive change or a negative change?
Negative.
Negative, we got rid of something, right? So we would say we have a negative 25% percent of change. Good? Okay. Let's say we got a shoe store marking up price of a pair of boots. Not a big boot guy. We'll call it basketball shoes, that's a lot better, right? Ball shoes. Think you can get basketball shoes for $44?
No.
Yeah, probably not. Anyway, we got a really good deal. Okay, so the regular price is $44, but the owner of the store is like, I want more money. I'm not going to give enough money if I only sell them for $44. I'm going to jack the price up by 45%. Okay. By the way, if we stopped right there and said, give me an estimate, like what's a reasonable estimate that these shoes are going to cost? How could you think through that in your head?
Well, it's about 50, so just try as close to doubling it.
Yeah, so if I'm 50% would be doubling it. 100% markup would be doubling it.
Okay. Then
I like your thought though. If he'd marked it up by 50%, 50% of 44 would be 22. Okay, so it'd be like the original price of 44 plus he's increasing it another 22. It's going to be a little bit less than that, but that gives us a roundabout estimate, right? 66 is probably a little too high, somewhere around 60, somewhere in there. Okay. So here's how we can do this. We can take that 45% and say we're going to multiply that by the original price, which is 44. And that's going to give us the total increase. That's not going to give us the total amount, but that's going to give us the amount of increase. Does that make sense? Go ahead and do that in your calculator. I'll do it here longhand. 4 times 5, 20, 16, 18.
19.8.
081 00891. Good. I got the same thing. 19.8. Okay. So they took that's the 45% increase is a total of $19.80. But the question is, what's the markup, which we just found, and then what's the new price? Well, the new price is the original $44 plus this markup, right? Plus $19.80. So altogether, the new price is going to be $63.80. Okay. Make sense?
Yeah.
Try this one. It works exactly the same way. A real estate agency sells a house at 22% off of the original cost. Okay, so it's less than the original cost. The original cost is $344,000. But they have now discounted this house and said, well, we're going to take 22% off. There's really two ways that you could do this. Can you think about what those two ways might be? What's one way?
Turn 22 into a fraction, 22% into a fraction, and then
I don't know if you really even need a fraction. What's one way?
I do 344,000 times 0.22, then subtract that number from the original.
Okay, so what you're saying is find the total price, which we already know, and then you subtract away the discount. Okay, so this is going to be your 344,000, and you're going to subtract the discount, which was that 344,000 times 22%, right? There's another way that I was thinking of doing it, is just taking the whole cost and multiplying it by what's going to be left. So another way you could do it, what's the other part of once 22% is gone, you're left with 78%, right? So if I take the total cost and I multiply it by the 78%, that would be another way to do it. It might get you there a little quicker. Okay? Either way is fine. Let me know what you get.
268,320.
Which way did you do it?
Nose way.
Okay, you got 268,320. I got 268,320 by doing it this way. So either way is okay. Alright, take a look at a couple more. A weightlifter. This is Noah. I should have just, I'm sorry. I was too bland.
Hey, Noah,
A Noah.
Shouldn't that be 10 pounds?
A Noah can lift 10 pounds. I mean 90 pounds. After 6 months, he can lift 125 pounds. This is real similar to what we started off with, right? Here's the first amount, and now the next amount increased. So what's the difference? So we're going back to that same thing. What's the percent of increase? And again, we say, well, what's the difference? And we're going to take that difference and divide it by the original. Okay, so the difference between 90 and 125 is
35.
35. Is that positive or negative? Positive. He gained more, or was able to do more weight. And the original was 90 pounds. Okay, so turn that into a percentage. What do we get?
0.3888 and so on.
0.3888 is a decimal, so turn it into a percentage now. I'd have to round that, right? What is that?
38.9.
Yeah, it kind of depends on how specific you want to be. I was thinking rounding to the nearest percentage, which would just be 39%, but you're a little more specific with 38.9. That's fine too. Okay, try one on the bottom. Binders that originally sold for $4.95 each are now selling for $3.87. It's the rollback deal at Walmart, I guess. What's the percent of decrease in the price of the binders? In other words, is it 20% off? Is it 35% off? Okay, I'll let you work on that one and see if we can get this without any help. Did you double check?
Yeah.
I'm not telling you,
Find my answers.
whatever.
95 plus 13. Okay, do we set up like this? The difference was, sorry, I should make that a negative. Negative 108, and the original cost was 495. Good, good. Okay, so when you take this, it's not going to be any different except for it's going to be a negative percent change. What is 108 divided by 495?
0.2181881.
0.22181 or 28?
2181.
218181. Okay, and so what is that in terms of percentage?
22%.
Yeah, just bump that over. Decimals over there now. 21.8 or if you're going in
Negative.
years, 22%.
Negative.
Oh, thank you. That is a negative 22%. In other words, a 22% discount. Okay? If I lost 50% of my wealth and then gained 50% of my wealth, do I end up with what I had originally? 50% decrease, 50% increase. Am I back to normal? Seems logical.
No.
The answer is no. Explain why.
Because when you lose 50%, you have to divide all you have by 2, so it wouldn't add up to the same amount.
Can you give me an example? Give me an example of what my wealth is.
So
An easy number to work with.
$4,
Okay, so if I start with $4, okay,
and you lose 50%, so you have $2 now.
okay, and now I
So-
gain 50% of that.
You only gain 1, so now you only have $3.
Correct. Make sense?
You're
That's how
poor.
percentage change works. All right, with a little bit of practice on that. So going to Google Classroom, we're doing, this was lesson 50, no, 47. We're gonna do number 7, through 26. 7 through 26. You guys have plenty of time to work on that now.